Let's take a look at our lineup today here on The Now, and there are concerns our current system for crash testing cars is outdated and also too lenient. What safety advocates say needs to change. Also, a mom getting attention for her view that marijuana makes her a better mother. Now, she's not alone in trying out what's called microdosing, so we're going to take a look into how that works. And it's definitely something you have to see to believe. We are getting the story behind these huge presidential busts.
RTV6 is working for you to get accountability on a dangerous issue. A crash on the east side has left one person dead and another in critical condition. This happened around 3 this morning at 10th Street and Arlington Avenue. Metro Police tell us an officer spotted a vehicle speeding down Arlington Avenue. A short time later, that vehicle slammed into another one at the intersection. The driver of the speeding car was in critical condition today, while the driver of the vehicle that was hit was killed. RTV6's Megan Sanctorum talked to a woman who lives right in front of the crash scene, and she shared her concerns with us. Stay with us at 6 for that interview. And Columbus police are looking for a suspect after a hit-and-run crash that left a bicyclist dead. This happened around 11:15 last night in this area near 11th and Chestnut Streets. That's where police found 21-year-old Kyla Ortlieb dead. Officers say a GMC Jimmy was found abandoned about a block from the crash site in the middle of another street. Right now, Columbus police do not have a description of a possible suspect. If you have any info on this case, you should call Columbus police at the number on your screen. That's 812-376-2600. Putting out some good energy in the universe to hopefully save lives. A group gathered today at the Fortville Fire Department to bless a new baby box. Baby boxes are meant to be safe and anonymous ways for people to surrender newborns rather than abandoning them where they could be harmed. There are now several baby boxes around Indiana.
She doesn't need to be scared. These women that choose the safe haven law, they're doing it out of the faith and the selflessness of wanting what's best for their child. Any woman can use this.
That was Monica Kelsey, the founder of Baby Boxes. She says she is now working to put all sorts of different languages on the boxes so there will never be a language barrier to someone using them. And on RTV6 in the Now Indy, we talk about hiring Hoosiers, our big project to connect you with news about jobs and career resources. Today, good news for education in Indiana. Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology is adding data science as a major as part of its efforts to adapt curriculum to meet the challenges of the future. This combines science, math, algorithms, and computer science to extract knowledge and insights from data. The new course of study is available to all students. Data science and machine learning are two of the fastest growing areas of the technology sector. Kevin, you can barely see outside.
Looks like rain to me, and it is. On the west side, you can see the low-hanging cloud cover. As Amanda mentioned, almost touching the ground there. Some of these downpours are moving southwest to northeast. They're moving fairly quickly. You may see an additional quarter of an inch or so. 66, that's the current temperature. Notice there's really no temperature range here. The rain in Indy, I'll show you the thin line. We all have the strong wind out of the south. It'll change more southwest and west and gust to 30 miles per hour. There are the brighter returns to heavier rain showers showing up on our radar. First to the north and east, about ready to reach Marion. Comes into northwest portions then of Madison County around to Elwood, down to Noblesville, Cicero, and Carmel. So heads up toward Fishers and Westfield and Geist, cutting through northern Marion County, the rain, and then back to the airport and portions of Morgan County. Watch how quickly we find the back edge of this. By 9, most of the rain in the eastern third of the state, and by 11, bye-bye. Temperatures will fall into the upper 50s as we dry out. It'll stay windy tonight. Talk about what you wake up to tomorrow and the changes ahead for Tuesday coming up.
Well, let's start the Now News to the Trump administration planning to take DNA samples from asylum seekers. The DNA would go into an FBI database used to find criminals. The samples would be collected at points of entry. Now, some parents involved in the college admissions scandal changing their tune a bit. 4 parents who were fighting charges decided to plead guilty today. Federal prosecutors are planning to file more charges against those who plead not guilty. Scientists think a virus is to blame for a polio-like illness in children. There have been close to 600 cases of AFM in the last 5 years. Experts say this is a key in finding a vaccine. 4 drug companies reaching a $260 million settlement today, just as the first federal trial over the opioid crisis was supposed to start. That trial involving 2 counties in Ohio and being watched closely across the country. The drug industry is facing more than 2,600 lawsuits brought by state and local governments seeking to hold it accountable for the opioid crisis. As part of today's settlement, distributors Amerisource Bergen, Cardinal Health, and McKesson will pay a combined $215 million. Drug maker Teva will pay $20 million in cash and provide $25 million worth of Suboxone, which is a drug used to treat opioid addiction. And today is National Check Your Meds Day. Health experts are encouraging people to talk to their pharmacists. The goal is to make sure prescriptions are all working well with one another. The National Community Pharmacists Association says that you should be checking with your pharmacist every time you change your medication routine. That includes when you get a new prescription or get a prescription renewed. Now, you should either check with a doctor or pharmacist. If you are receiving prescriptions from multiple doctors, have one person oversee all medication. Now, you may not be worried about over-the-counter drugs or supplements, but pharmacists say those are equally as important. And if you're taking a drug to treat the side effects of another, your pharmacist may be able to actually refer you to a different drug or lower your dose. Now, while we may get a prescription for a longer window of time, doctors say it may not be necessary for patients to take a medication for that long. So by checking in, you may actually get the okay to get off of that medication. Well, let's get back to our lineup here on The Now, and we rely on crash tests to know which cars are safe to drive. Safety advocates are now warning that those tests may be too easy to pass and outdated. We're going to talk about some of the changes they're calling for ahead.
And refined Atlas SE with technology.
A Purdue University professor and his wife have pled guilty to using more than $1 million in federal research funds for their personal expenses. 61-year-old King-Yu Han serves as the director for Purdue's Center for Materials Processing Research. Federal prosecutors say Han admitted to using $1.3 million from National Science Foundation funds. The money was funneled into his wife Lu Xiao's company, Han's Tech LLC. Both have pled guilty to a federal wire fraud charge. Now, a Purdue spokesperson says they are aware of the plea and says it will, quote, carefully consider the matter in light of its policies.
Crash tests for vehicles are in a desperate need of an update. That is the word from multiple auto safety groups. Right now, 98% of all vehicles get 4 or 5 stars, and we're talking about a system that hasn't been updated since 2010.
It's the equivalent of Halloween. Everyone gets candy. The idea is supposed to be separating between things that are safe and things that are really safe.
Jason Levine with the Center for Auto Safety says the tests are too easy to pass and they don't help consumers understand the difference between cars. Some recommendations include testing new technology that helps drivers avoid crashes like emergency automatic braking. Also, how passengers in the rear seats are impacted. Testing systems that help avoid hitting pedestrians. This type of testing already exists, but it's just not mandated here in the U.S.
NHTSA, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, has dragged its feet on renewing these ratings for almost a decade now. They said they were going to update them in 2015, and they didn't. They said they were going to update them in 2018, and they didn't. Here we are. We just saw a press release last week of NHTSA saying we'll do something in 2020, but they haven't even really explained what that is.
Advocates also say there's a need to update crash test dummies to reflect changes we've seen in drivers like weight, height, and age. Let's start the Now newsfeed. A new report saying Americans are not using credit cards for cash advances as much these days. Experts say that's good news considering credit card debt has never been higher in the United States. Dunkin' getting in on the plant-based meat trend. You'll be able to get a sausage sandwich that's made with Beyond Meat starting November 6th. The company moved up its launch date after it tested really well in New York City. Well, get ready for a new kind of apple. You can actually invent a new kind of apple, and that's what's happened with what's called Cosmic Crisp. It's the first apple bred in Washington State. These new apples, they should be ready at some point this year. Washington State does grow the majority of the apples in the United States. Well, ahead in our lineup, it is a story you really do have to see for yourself to believe.
I mean, how often do you get to see ginormous presidents' heads?
Yeah, I mean, not often, right? What more than 40 massive heads of our presidents are doing just sitting out in the open? We have the story behind this one coming up.
Call, click, or visit a store today.
Really the last thing you might expect to see in just the middle of the field. More than 40 massive heads featuring our nation's presidents just kind of sitting out there in the open. How did they get there, and what are they doing there? Well, our Maya Rodriguez went to go find out, and she wasn't the only one.
Near this natural setting in rural Virginia rises a most unusual sight.
Fascinating mysterious, intriguing, and beautiful.
I mean, how often do you get to see ginormous presidents' heads?
These are the presidential busts, at one time part of a nearby presidential amusement park. They were set to be destroyed at this industrial recycling facility, but the facility's owner couldn't bring himself to do it.
And if you were approached by taking 42 statues of the most powerful men in America and to throw them in the stone crusher, any American would probably have a hard time with that.
And so they stayed here, becoming an unintentional tourist attraction. Photographer and author John Plaschel now gives weekend tours.
It's maybe a little less about the presidential experience and more about the uniqueness of the scene, right? That's a very powerful thing.
Powerful enough to bring in people from North Carolina.
They kind of look like zombies.
To California.
I kind of have a thing with heads.
Here you'll find George Washington.
He was the only president to never live in the White House.
And Abraham Lincoln.
He was a world-class wrestler.
And every president through George W. Bush, the last one made before the park went under.
And I love it. It's just really special being here.
They were set to move to a new home in September, but the deal fell through. So the owner is keeping these aging monuments here for now.
What matters to him is that the general public is able to come experience these things safely and inexpensively.
I think everybody should get to see this. This is very unique.
A unique tribute in an unusual setting. Near Williamsburg, Virginia, I'm Maya Rodriguez reporting.
That is so interesting. Maya, thank you. Now, JP Morgan Chase opening the job pool to more applicants. Company says it's willing to hire employees even if they have a criminal conviction. Now, right now, JP Morgan only hiring them for entry-level jobs. The National Employment Law Project says the move is beneficial to both applicants and the company.
Very systematically showing that people with records make great employees. They have higher promotion rates, better retention rates, no more likely to commit any kind of, offense on the job. So there's a lot of motivation on the part of folks with records.
Now, JP Morgan is in a handful of cities like Detroit, helping potential employees with certain skills. That includes career development, financial health, and entrepreneurship.
Going to get an infusion for chemotherapy can be a really difficult time, but it was a little easier for a few cancer patients here in Indy today with a visit from the Colts. Players visited with patients at IU Health's Simon Cancer Center to encourage them as they got their treatments. They also delivered care packages and flowers. One woman who was there today says it was really exciting to be surprised by not only Jacoby Brissett on the field this season, but in the cancer center today.
I just think it's so kind of them. It just shows their heart. It shows their kindness, and I think their love for Indianapolis and for the fans. You know, we're fans of them, and they are paying back, and that's wonderful.
The NFL has an effort called Crucial Catch Intercept Cancer to raise awareness and funding to battle all types of cancer. And there are tons of fun things to do around town with your furry kids this Halloween season. We are looking ahead at a good one happening this week on Thursday. It's the special Halloween edition of Yappy Hour at White River State Park. The pet-friendly event has all sorts of music, games, and food for humans. Doggy trick-or-treating and a costume contest for your pets. That's happening from 6 to 8:30 this Thursday evening at White River State Park. Kevin, what's Rory going to be dressing up as?
Rory is afraid of everything.
She's afraid of her own costume.
Exactly. I love the title of that, though, the Yappy Hour.
Yes, it's a fun one. I've been before. I definitely recommend it.
I can imagine. It's fun to see everybody's dog dressed up. Let me take you treetop level. You're looking from Speedway then to downtown. This is in Brown County, just above the wet trees, but colorful. Boy, this has changed over the last week. Lots of bright reds, some oranges there as well, and still some green. I think our trend of bouncing these temperatures around from cool mornings to mild afternoons will continue to kind of turn up the brightness. 66, that's our current temperature. The wind out of the south, and that's zipping along at 16 miles per hour with higher gusts. The rain just rolled through downtown. Heard it here on our roof. Northeast side of Marion County up toward Fort Bend, Castleton, then to Geist, and then into into areas around Marion and Grant County. Notice how quickly the clouds briefly clear. There's your clearing line, but then this is the cold pool of air, which will filter in as we go through the nighttime hours tomorrow and greet you tomorrow. Temperature 56 by 10 o'clock. The scattered showers will end. It will stay gusty. The wind's gusting to 30 miles per hour. There are your morning temperatures. Mid-40s generally speaking. About 56 or 57 will be the max number tomorrow afternoon. That's with lots of cloud cover in the cooler air. As you look around, temperatures low to mid-50s. Couple exceptions to the south, just slightly warmer.
Let's start the Now News feed with another example of why firefighters are so brave. This is video of an LA firefighter falling from a burning roof. Amazing thing, the firefighter just kept fighting those flames. He was not seriously hurt. Well, overseeing U.S. public lands, apparently a tough job. A watchdog agency found that federal employees were either threatened or assaulted at least 360 times over a 5-year period. The report says the amount of officers patrolling parks and forests has dropped as well. Well, you'll now be able to help other drivers out on Google Maps because you can report the hazards, slowdowns, maybe speed traps that you see on the road. Google does own Waze, which already has this feature. New guidance for families with kids playing sports. The National Athletic Trainers Association telling families to stop focusing on just one sport.
When we force children to specialize in a single sport very young, yes, they can adapt for a while, but what happens is we build a very shaky foundation for our athlete's house.
Now, John O'Sullivan is the founder of the Changing the Game project, and he agrees with these new recommendations. They say that you should delay specializing in a single sport for as long as possible. The group also says kids should not play a single sport for more than 8 months a year, and it's important that they get 2 days a week of rest. Also interesting, they say kids should not play more hours of organized sports in a week than their age. Experts say serious injuries and burnout are happening just too soon.
So we have 12-year-old baseball players blowing out their elbow. We have 16-year-old soccer players who have had 3 ACL surgeries. And these things have lifetime implications: arthritis, knee replacements, joint replacements, and less activity in adulthood because of overuse when they're children.
O'Sullivan says kids need a multi-movement experience growing up, so play different sports or do other physical activities like, say, martial arts. With all the concerns raised about illnesses connected to vaping, there is another side of the story that you might not often hear. Some smokers saying that e-cigs help them quit the traditional ones. Elizabeth Ruiz talking to someone who made that switch.
I have not smoked a combustible cigarette in over 7 years.
After smoking cigarettes for 15 years, Joe Vondruska decided to make a change in his life.
Knowing that I wanted to spend the rest of my life healthy with my wife, I looked for an alternative to ingest my nicotine.
For him, that alternative was vaping.
This is a vaping device.
His wife, Monica, says the switch has been beneficial for the both of them.
I'm not smelling cigarette smoke in the morning when I wake up. I'm not hearing him cough and hack loogies off the front deck.
Monica says multiple people in her life have used vape products to quit traditional smoking. In fact, that's one of the biggest reasons she and Joe decided to open a vape shop.
We all know that smoking kills. We've known that since the 60s, and yet today we still have people smoking. In order for us to get that smoking rate down, there needs to be a viable option for people.
And the Vondruska family has witnessed some people achieving that goal with the help of vaping.
We don't mind if people get off vaping at all because we're still a community and we're still a family, and they still drop in, which is pretty neat. Probably one of the neatest things about opening a vape shop.
It's that community Monica and Joe feel is necessary to help people quit their smoking habit if that's what they desire. Whatever the case, they stick together like a family.
For years and years and years, we've been demonized as smokers and kind of outcasted. And when you have a support system of, okay, let's step your nicotine down, let's get you out. If this is your goal, let's do it. A lot of smokers don't have that support system.
I'm Elizabeth Ruiz reporting.
All right, Elizabeth, thank you. Next in our lineup here on The Now, one mom is getting attention for her view that marijuana makes her a better mother. Now, she's not alone in trying out what's called microdosing. We're going to take a look at how that works.